Good afternoon, everybody, on a very snowy afternoon. And so, with some cancellations, I thought I would have an attempt to show some of the isolated movements that happen throughout the wing structure that contribute to our vibrato. I'm not going to demonstrate vibrato because that's, for me, in the realms of the experts. However, there are certain muscle groups and movements which I think are sometimes labelled by other people in a slightly confusing way. And so I thought I'd just demonstrate some of those movements, and then you can decide where it is that you're going to initiate movement for yourself. So the first place I'd like to start is at the shoulder. Some people have mentioned that it's deltoid that is responsible for part of the vibrato. Actually, deltoid takes the arm away from the side, it takes it back, and it takes it across. Deltoid meaning three parts, like a deltoid in a river. But the rotation at the shoulder, that if I keep my elbow into my side, takes my hand away, brings my hand across. If I then abduct my arm, the rotation that takes place about the shoulder joint is this. And then when Abigail Hugh McGrath takes a tennis ball up and down the length of the fingerboard, it's this big motor rotation that happens. And then when you fix your finger to a smaller area, that rotation is what is responsible for that movement. And then we have the elbow, which opens and closes. Now, actually, people often think that the movement takes place here. But if you look at the structure of the elbow, the back of the elbow, this is a right arm, by the way, the movement actually takes place at the back of the upper arm. And so when you have a concept of moving the elbow, if you think of the back of the elbow as being free, that softens the effort considerably. Now, I'm not sure that this has got anything to do with the elbow at all. What's more likely is that there's a rotation. So where does that rotation take place? It takes place within the forearm at the secondary joint to the elbow, between the radius and the ulna, and the head of the radius at the base of the elbow, which is a kind of, I don't know if you can see this. Here the hand is open, palm up, and then if you look carefully, the radius, the bone that is on the thumb side of the forearm, rotates across the little side, the little finger side of the forearm, and we have this motion. Now this can occur completely independently of the shoulder. It occurs completely independently of the elbow. Maybe that's what people talk about when they talk about the amplitude of vibrato. There's your shoulder rotation, there's your forearm supination and pronation. And then there's one other fabulous little detail about the wrist. If you look at the crease of your wrist, you might be hoodwinked into thinking that it's in a kind of straight line. Well, as you might have guessed, that's not true. The long bone that continues towards the thumb, the radius, is quite a lot longer than the bone that continues towards the little finger side of the hand. With the result that the wrist is or the flexion of the wrist is at an angle. It's not a straight line across. It occurs with a slight longer end here, shorter end here. So if you're trying to move your wrist in a way that's parallel to the length of these bones, there will be more tension. If you allow for that little unevenness in length between the radius and the ulna, then you have a natural wrist flexion that includes a slight, if you could call it a slight droop. That's the way that the hand naturally falls because of the length of the bones. So working your hand in a way that's a little bit tight, or working your hand in a way that's a little bit easier and looser, is very valuable. It might be that that's more for violinists. That's really hard to do. That's really easy to do. But it might come into play in terms of our vibrato, maybe further along the keyboard, the fingerboard. I'm not sure. But certainly knowing that your wrist is easier when it has that slight angle is perhaps useful. The finger flexibility, as so many people have said, is passive. The finger stays still, but as the arm moves, so hopefully there's flexibility throughout the hand. I hope that's interesting and useful. I'm about to give it a try now in my early beginner's attempts at vibrato.